if you just do it, it'll turn out okay. And today, we're talking about pretty much the entire history of the English monarchy, not including the British kings because they don't count.
They don't do anything, so no, they don't count.
So, any of you Hanovers or Queen Victoria fans out there, this ain't the stream for you.
Nope. Nope.
We're starting with the Wessex and ending with the Stuarts. This is my name, so good ending, kind of.
Well, we're ranking them from least influential / least good monarch to the best monarch. So we'll see who it is, I guess.
All right, let's see who made the list and who is left out of the dust. But all right, let's see at source.
Yeah. The bottom of the list was hard to make, by the way. And like, this guy sucks and this guy sucks. Who am I gonna put there?
Right. So as I get this uploaded, for those who don't know who he is, introduce yourself.
I am Bede. I am a history fan. I like history. English history, medieval history is my favorite. I have a history degree, poli-sci minor. That's it.
And so what's this? So for those who don't know, what's this evil thing on our Discord that we're on together?
I didn't want to watch a movie, and I got called evil for it. And Dapper Dinosaur changed my name on the Discord, and this is some dictatorship type stuff. I do not like it. I want my name back. Damn you, Dapper.
You can't change it back yourself.
I can, but no, I'm not gonna do it on principle. Dapper has to do it. And they're just ranked shipfish. Shipfish.
English kings ranked
Now
by Bede.
Yeah, to start off, we're gonna have to talk about the ones that I wasn't able to rank. This is because they either had too little on them, or their reign was too short, or they never really did anything in their reign. So Edward the Martyr, who is before Athelred the Unready, Harold II Godwinson.
Is Edward the Martyr his uncle or his half brother?
His brother, who was murdered.
Okay.
Who was shanked. Harold Godwinson, of course.
He did something. He did something. He said no to he said no to William the Bastard Conqueror, and
yeah, it just wasn't long enough. Plus, yeah, Edward V. He was never crowned, and he's the youngest English monarch to ever reign. He also never became an adult.
Yeah, he was declared illegitimate by his uncle for a bit, but then his brother-in-law made him legitimate again.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Edward V, he only reigned for like a couple of months, and never being crowned is a bad thing. And Edward VI, who is the son of the very famous Henry VIII, who was gunning for his son. His only son didn't even make it to 15. Wait, to 16.
Correction, his only legitimate son.
I don't think Henry VIII had any other kids. I mean, sons. But
really, I thought he had a few from his mistress. Really, might be wrong. I thought he had a few from mistresses, but they didn't count because they're not legitimate.
Though the
I
one
might be wrong
monarch I
here.
know who had a lot of problems with mistresses was Charles II, but I don't. Henry VIII really was gunning for that legitimate son, and then he dies when he's 15 and never rules. The biggest thing he did was he tried to make Lady Jane Grey queen, and that didn't work out.
Yeah. So Edwig, was that before or after Alfred?
Eadwy is after Alfred. All of
So
these
one of his
monarchs are after Alfred.
so one of his descendants, then, not one of his brothers or parents.
I'm pretty sure Eadwy is between Edmund the First and Athelred.
So like Edward the Martyr's father, maybe Edward and Alfred's father.
No, I don't think he has any kids.
So maybe his uncle or cousin then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like I said, I think it was funny, like his because going back, Henry the Seventh had to make Edward the Fifth legitimate, because if he was legitimate, that means his sister wouldn't be legitimate either. You can't marry an illegitimate person.
Yeah, Eadwy, I think is Edgar's brother. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, your brother is legitimate again, because I want you to be legitimate, because I'm not marrying some illegitimate lady.
Yeah. So we're ranking 38 monarchs in the bottom of the barrel. The bottom.
Is
The worst English monarch, Henry VI. He reigns for a surprising long period of time, but the whole time he doesn't really do much because he's insane.
plus half the time, plus the first half, he was still a baby.
Yeah, his dad dies when he's still young.
So wasn't he technically the? So would he be technically the youngest monarch then, like at 6 months or something?
Uh,
Not him.
quite possibly. Yes,
Not at.
bottom tier. Never even heard of this guy. Exactly. Um, so he was the son of Henry V, who everybody knows about. Henry V decided to marry a French princess who was like the daughter of a mad king, and then guess what he got? A kid who was insane. Congrats.
Genetics, it's a thing.
Yeah. Congrats. Henry VI's reign is mostly just him and his wife trying to keep the Lancastrians in power. One of his cousins, the Duke of Somerset, absolutely just hamming it up in the worst freaking way in France, in the way that, they lose most of what his father had gained, which his father, Henry VI, was supposed to succeed the French king to the throne of France, but it never happens because the Duke of Somerset sucked.
And a little thing called the Joan of Arc.
Yeah, Joan of Arc as well. So yeah, and he ends up having a kid, but he ends up losing the throne to another one of his cousins, because his reign is marked by the Wars of the Roses.
What you talked about before, I'll put a link up there. I'll put a card up there for you all to see our War of the Roses episode.
Yeah. His
sorry, real fast. You know what's funny about that? But his son, he has a son, right? His son, I think his name was Edward. His wife was the daughter of the kingmaker who later married who later married Richard III. So they shared wives.
Weird. Yeah. But he loses the Wars of the Roses twice, by the way, because the guy who succeeds him, Edward IV, ends up pissing off the wrong guy, the Earl of Warwick. And the Earl of Warwick's like, okay, you're going to piss me off? well, I'm just gonna go to Henry VI and we're gonna bring him back for a year, and then Edward IV eventually takes back the throne. But yeah, no, crazy, last of his line, stuff like that. All around bad, just
The links,
bad.
yep, the links. Lancasters were no more until his cousin came along. Until his half cousin came along.
Yeah. So number 37 is Richard III.
One of the guys that replaced them. The family.
Yeah, Richard
The brother of the guy.
III was a Yorkist monarch. He was the brother of Edward IV, who took the throne from Henry VI. Now,
Being the fifth.
no, Edward IV.
I
He's
think
the brother of Edward IV.
no, I
Correct.
thought you said he took the. I think you said he took the throne from Edward VI.
No, I was saying that Edward IV took the throne from Henry VI.
Oh, okay. I got the. I was jumping the guns.
Yeah. Richard III what was given the regency of his little nephew, Edward V, who we talked about as being unrankable. But he decides, you know what? I want to become king, and decides to say Edward V was illegitimate because Edward IV was a bigamist or something like
Yeah,
that.
he didn't like his. He said he liked the guy's wife, so he said nope. He was already supposed to be married to someone else. So that this marriage thing never counted.
Yes, too many of those. Yeah, Richard of York, I'll call this guy, I guess. He only rules for a little bit. Eventually, the Lancastrian cause falls upon this other guy named Henry VII. Yes, there's lots of people with the same name.
You know, there's a rumor that said he wanted to have an affair with his niece. These people are. I think it's. I read it's been disproven, but apparently that's a rumor.
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors about Richard III. Like, did he murder his nephews? Stuff like that. He ends up losing the last battle of the Wars of the Roses, the Battle of Bosworth against Henry VII, and he's the end of the male Yorkist line. However, he has a niece who will marry the guy who takes the throne from him. But yeah.
Now, is he considered the least popular king in English history, or is there other ones that are less popular?
I have no idea. I wasn't basing this on what other people thought.
Just your own opinion.
Yeah, because there's a couple kings that are a little low compared to what other people think on this list. But yeah, so you lose the Civil War. That he like took the throne, but he wasn't able to win the Civil War. So
that's the problem when you attack your own. When you civil war with your own family, and your family might try to choose the other side.
Yeah.
Like yeah. I'm possibly gonna kill my nephews, or at least look the other way when they're killed. Oh my god, why do you guys side with the Tudors for some reason? I don't understand.
Yeah. They recently, recently, but they found his body in Leicester in like a parking lot or something, and they were able to identify him, and then they reburied him because he didn't get to go get buried in like a proper grave. He was just left there.
Yeah. Also, I heard they're finally going. The current king, or the current future king. I don't know if he's technically king yet, but they say they're finally going to do a DNA test on the two kids they found in the tower to see if they really are Edward V because for sure they assumed they were, but now they're actually going to do a DNA test.
Yeah. Oh no. I'm so sorry, Shipfish. You're not gonna like this. Number 36 is Richard II. Oh no.
The start of the War of the Roses.
Kind of, yes. But yeah, I didn't even notice this at first. I'm sorry. He's got the number right before Richard III. So Richard II succeeds his grandfather, Edward the Third, who started the 100 Years' War, and he's a kid. His dad, I'm sorry, Shipfish. His dad died before his grandpappy. His father was Edward the Black Prince. So Richard II, most of his reign, he was a kid, and then when he becomes an adult, all he does is piss off the nobility, which isn't a good thing. One of his bigger accomplishments is he was able to put down a peasant rebellion with his words, not with swords, with his words. And he's the first recorded English king after 1066 that spoke English in public. So there's that. Didn't like being all Frenchy, but he eventually pisses off his cousin Henry Bolingbroke by banishing him. Henry Bolingbroke goes to Ireland, gets an army, and comes and takes the kingdom from Richard II. So that's it. They lose some land in France because he's a shitty king. There you go. Not a Frenchie. He's not a frog. Oh no, is that a slur? I don't know. Oh, we're getting a lot of deposed kings out of the way first. Number 35 is James II. He is the Duke of York that New York is named after. So James II was the brother of Charles II.
And the son of Charles I.
Yes, and the son of Charles I. He was a Stuart. He does this horrible thing of
Becoming
Catholic. And at first, the aristocracy wasn't going to do anything about it.
Like, we don't care.
But then he had a son.
Because his daughters are good Protestant women.
Yeah.
And we're fine.
And then he has a son. There is no James III.
At least, unless you count the Pretenders.
Unless you're counting the Pretenders, yes. So he's a Catholic. That's no good to the aristocracy, especially after he has a kid. He gets punted off the throne, and his daughter
and son-in-law
become the king. He tries and fails to become king by invading Ireland and getting defeated there by and this is actually the beginning of the Protestant Irish forces being called the Oranges because of William the Orange. James II's unsuccessful there. His heirs try to take the throne as well a couple of times. Their supporters are called Jacobins. But they never win. They continue trying to gain the throne until like the 1770s.
Yeah. At least his son waited until his sisters. I think at least his son waited until his both sisters were both dead before he tried to take over.
Yeah.
One of his like that.
descendants is Bonnie Prince Charlie. So there's that. Oh, here we go. One without a number.
Yeah, but yeah, he. That's pretty much all she wrote. Like,
This one
but
has no
next,
number.
ah,
Number 34, Stephen of Blois. So, Stephen was a grandson of William the
yes,
Conqueror. He was part of the French aristocracy, but he was part of Henry the First's vassals.
yeah,
Um,
he was his sister's son.
yeah. Um, he narrowly misses getting killed with a bunch of people in the white ship incident, I
Like
think.
his cousin.
Yeah. He avoids getting on that ship out. Essentially, the English won a campaign. The English won a campaign, and um, they all went celebrating on a boat to go back to England. The the heir apparent of the English throne dies in the accident, and he just didn't get on the boat. Stephen of Blois didn't. Um, he is also one of the people that pledged an oath that he wasn't going to usurp the throne from Henry I's daughter, but he was in the right place at the right time, so he took the throne.
Oh, look, she's still in France or Normandy or whatever, and I'm over here in England. Whoopsie, the crown fell on my head.
Yeah, his whole reign, almost his whole reign, is uh, accompanied by a civil war called the Anarchy, in which him and Empress Matilda, the daughter of Henry I, duke it out for a while. He eventually loses because he doesn't necessarily lose. He was planning on giving up the throne to his son upon his death, but his son dies. So he sort of just sees the writing on the wall, and he makes peace, and he says that Matilda's son can become king when he dies, essentially.
Gotta
And
love family.
yeah, the Blois actually are pretty their family were the Dukes of Champagne. And some of them marry the daughters of there's too many Louis. I don't know which Louis, but Louis and Eleanor of Aquitaine. One of his cousins does.
But that's a story for maybe our next month's French rankings.
Yeah, that king's not going to be very high on the list. Losing that marriage, oof. So number 33,
All right.
Charles the First.
Hmm. Yeah. He doesn't seem. I don't think he got. I don't think he got ahead very much.
No, he doesn't have a good. He doesn't have a good head on him. You know, let him down a bad path. Yeah, Charlie. Uh, so Charles the First was the second Stuart king. He was the second king to rule over both Scotland. Well, all three: Scotland, England, and Ireland. Um, but
And unlike his father, he only had one name for both kingdoms.
well, James the First styled himself as King of Great Britain, but it just wasn't official kind of thing.
Okay.
So Charles the First, uh, he keeps having these schemes to to do things on the continent, like make war with different people. No, it was not as popular as it was today to be called Junior. You were Charles the First, Charles the Second. There you go.
Besides, his dad was James anyway, so it could have been Junior Ernie.
Yeah. So Charles has a lot of weird schemes on the continent that don't work out. Parliament. So essentially, the English system, you have to ask Parliament for taxes.
Especially now, it's starting to be that way now.
Yeah. If you can't get taxes, you can't go fight a war. But Charles wanted to fight lots of wars. He wanted to go help out his cousins. Well, no, he wanted to help out his sister in Bohemia during the 30 Years' War. That never
Was that the sister that
materialized.
later became the grandmother of George the First?
Yes. She was called the Winter Queen because her husband was the Winter King. But that's like 30 Years War stuff. Things. So
What might be another, possibly be a future episode, maybe.
yeah, Charles' favorite dude was incompetent, essentially. So every time he got money from Parliament, he'd give it to the incompetent guy, and they just lose all their money. And Parliament was getting tired of this. So Charles the First was like, you know what? I'm not gonna listen to you guys anymore. I'm gonna find ways to make money without you. So he does. He uses an old law that essentially made it so that towns had to pay the monarchy in order to have a navy. But he was like, he was getting this tax from inland areas. He was getting these taxes from inland areas and everything. And eventually everybody's like, you know what? Screw this. We want our rights back. So a civil war happens, the English Civil War. England had so many civil wars, but they're not called the English Civil War. I don't get why this one is, But eventually the people that were behind the Parliament.
Well, I guess maybe because this time wasn't between the family members; it was between somebody else. Wasn't the family?
Oh yeah, because it's between Parliament and the monarchy. The Parliament wins. Charles is taken into custody. At first, Parliament wants to negotiate with them, but they eventually get couped by one of the parliamentarian military leaders, and Charles loses his head.
And for a brief few years, they were a commonwealth.
Yeah, for a brief few years, they were ruled only by Parliament, but that eventually ends.
Then his son took over. He's like, "Nah, we don't like your son. Let's bring back the monarchy again."
Yeah. Hey, next we get our first pre-1066 king, Athelred the Unready.
You may have heard of him back in our Anglo-Saxon miniseries.
Yeah, so Athelred the Unready, he comes to the throne a little young. So essentially the nobility of England is able to gain a lot of powers from him.
Yeah, after his brother Edward the Martyr was martyred.
Yeah, which is blamed on Ethelred the Unready. Funnily enough about his name, it does not mean that he wasn't ready. It's a modern translation of the Old English Unrad and it's a pun on his name. So in Old English, Athel meant noble and Rad meant council. So his name means noble council. However, he tried to get power away from the entrenched nobility so that he could start ruling the way he wanted to by taking these advisors and using these advisors as a way to strip land from the old nobility to try to create a new nobility. So eventually when those counselors are dealt with, they get blamed instead of the king for his bad policies, so they call him Unrad, which means bad counsel.
Yeah.
It's a pun.
Yeah,
Because
he. Sorry.
what?
I was gonna say, and both his sons had famous names too.
Yeah, Edmund Ironside and Edward the Confessor.
We'll get to those eventually.
There's also no, that was his grandson. Never mind. That was his grandson. But yeah. So Athelred loses out in the domestic sphere. He loses out to the entrenched classes, and then the rest of his reign is kind of trying to deal with the Danes coming back after they'd been gone for a while, and they're just ravaging everything. An interesting thing that happens is the St. Brice's Day massacre, where he kills a bunch of Danish people just for being Danish.
That won't backfire at all.
Yeah, yeah. It's possible that one of the dudes who takes the throne from him did it because of this. It's been argued that because that was Svein Forkbeard. Svein Forkbeard might have just been, he's like, I'm making a lot of money from raiding here. Let's just become king of here. Stuff like that. Ethelred actually has 2 reigns. He flees to Normandy, where his wife is from, when Svein Forkbeard takes the throne. But Svein dies pretty soon after, and Athelred and his son Edward the Confessor tries to they try to essentially come back to the English throne. We're not gonna do any of that other stuff we used to do, okay? And so Athelred gets to come back. His other son, who's fearing that Edward the Confessor was going to become king after his death, Edmund Ironside, tries to take the throne before Athelred dies. A whole bunch of stuff happens. Canute the Great comes in, boom. But Athelred ends up dying of his own. He dies. He just dies. But he leaves the kingdom. England was such a great place before Athelred's reign. And then it goes to shit during him. So that's why he's this low.
All right.
"31st. There's not much really to say about this guy. Harold Harefoot. He is the son of a guy named Canute the Great, who ruled over all of Scandinavia and England all at once.
So this wasn't the half brother of Edward the Confessor, right?
No, he is Canute's son with a Anglo-Saxon noblewoman, not Emma, who was also Athelred the Unready's wife.
Again, sharing wives, just like Richard III and Henry VI's son shared a wife.
Yeah, Harold Harefoot wasn't supposed to become king of England. That was Harthacnut, his brother. And initially Harold Harefoot was just ruling England while his brother was away fighting a rebellion in Norway. And then he says, man, Harthacnut's been gone for a while. You know what? I'm going to become king now. And takes the throne.
Just like Stephen did.
Yeah, pretty much. Harthacnut, it's a TH, HAR. He comes up later. You'll see it. But Harthacnut was supposed to become king. Harold Harefoot essentially ruled through the ruling, like the most powerful families of the day. So you've got Leofric of Mercia and Godwin of Wessex, who have gained a lot of power under his father. They pretty much control his reign. He ends up dying. I don't remember if it was natural causes. But before that, he killed a guy named Alfred, who I think was his brother. And for that, after he dies and Harthacnut comes, takes the throne, Harthacnut decides to uninter Harold's body and desecrate it and throw it in a bog for that. So that's the most I can talk about Harold Harefoot.
Remember, folks, don't kill your brothers, or your other brother will unbury you and do stuff to your body.
Yeah. Not the worst thing that's happened to an English king's body. That comes later.
Yay!
So 30th, Edward the Confessor, the son of Athelred the Unready.
And the half brother of the guy we talked about.
Yes. His mother was a Norman. So
I don't know if that'll become important later.
Yeah. During the reign of his stepfather, I guess you can call him, Canute the Great, he spends his time in Normandy, and he starts, he becomes friends with all the Norman aristocracy, and eventually when he's invited back to become king, he brings all his buddies with him, all his French buddies with him. How dare they come into England? Good God.
That won't ever happen again, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Edward essentially tries to do what his father did, but this time with French people.
Yeah. But then there's this guy, I guess, who's the Earl of Wessex, who said, "Hey, marry my daughter."
Oh yeah, and he didn't really like his wife, so that's why he never has kids. So early on, he actually is able to expel the family of the Earl of Wessex, and he takes his wife and puts her in a nunnery and starts putting all his buddies in power. But then the Earl of Wessex comes back and is able to essentially make Edward stop all that nonsense and go back to things the way they were.
Yeah, I mentioned this on the thing. Actually, links to that. The Earl of Wessex actually blinded his brother with pokers.
Yeah,
A few years before that.
Yeah, but that was early.
Yeah, I don't think for some reason I don't think it'll be a good impression on Edward watching his brother get blinded by pokers. I don't know why that one made him happy.
Yeah. So one of the unrankable kings, Harold II, Godwinson, he becomes the most powerful man in England after his father dies, who was the Earl of Wessex.
Which was Edward's brother-in-law.
Yes.
Not by wanting to, just because.
And some fuckery kind of happens. Something happens where Edward might have promised the throne to both Harold II and William the Bastard of Normandy. And Harold Godwinson traveled to Normandy sometime in between this period and might have been like, "Oh, I give up my claim to the English throne to you, William the Bastard. You can take it," which later comes to, bite England in the butt. Edward is said to have died after being so upset he couldn't put down a rebellion against one of Harold Godwinson's brothers, Toasty, He wanted to put down that rebellion, but Harold Godwinson said, "No, that's not. That doesn't favor me. I want these other guys to become the Earls of Northumbria."
Yeah, you know, I might be wrong. This might be just my opinion, obviously. But I I don't think that Edward the Confessor would want the brother of the wife he doesn't like and the son of the guy he hates to be king after him. Maybe that's just me.
Who knows? But yeah, essentially, it said that he got so frustrated he couldn't do what he wanted to do that it killed him. Which I don't know if that can happen. If that can, I really need to start like feng shuiing out here, okay? Because I get frustrated a lot. So, uh, yeah. So he dies in 1066. Big year number that everybody knows. He leaves the country to have like a big civil war that ends up with his family never holding the reins of power ever again. Boom. Edward the
Was he
Confessor.
kind of well, at least his father's family, his cousin's family, different story.
Yeah, but the Anglo Saxons don't rule the kingdom anymore after him. Well, after him and Harold II. You know that little song you might do in the mirror about Bloody Mary? That's based on this chick, Mary the First.
Who decided, you know what? Let's go back to being Catholics for a ring or two.
She's the first daughter of Henry VIII. Her mother was a Spanish lady who was Catholic, and
Who happened to be the daughter of the first true kings of Spain.
yes, and she was she was her mother was originally promised to Henry VIII's brother, who was the original Prince of Wales. But
Arthur.
then, yeah, Arthur. But then he dies, and so Henry VII, not wanting to lose that big money alliance with Spain, was like, okay, you can marry my son, Henry VIII. He's the new Prince of Wales. But she's old now. And she only has this daughter. And he really wants a son. He doesn't want to have what happened to Henry the First happen. It ends up happening kind of anyway, but you know. um. So yeah, Henry VIII changes the religion of England just
Well,
to divorce her mom.
well, technically, I don't know if he's changed it completely. I think I think technically he was still Catholic like, but he was like,
Yeah,
screw
yeah,
it,
yeah. But now it's Protestant. Now it's Protestant.
yeah, but I'm in charge now. But his son later on, like, nope, we're going full force.
And Mary the First comes to the throne after her little brother dies, and she's like, "Hey,
And after she
Catholic,"
overthrew her,
and I,
after she overthrew her cousin for a bit, like, nope, my cousin's not queen either. I am.
yeah. So she kind of, she's like, "We're gonna bring back the Catholic Church, baby," and she like burns a bunch of people at the stake. It's not fun. She's only this high on the list because she married the King of Spain,
Her
Philip.
her first cousin, like, or nephew or second cousin. First
Yeah,
cousin was removed. Okay, no, Charles V was her first cousin, so Philip would have been her first cousin once removed.
I mean they're Habsburgs. It's what they do. But yeah, Philip was her husband. This is a really big alliance. England and Spain allied. That's a nice one. She has a lot of phantom pregnancies, but she never really gets pregnant.
Yep,
And she ends up
no kid that unite the kingdoms of Spain and England.
dying, and it's just kind of like sad. Other than the
And
fact that
England
she murdered a bunch
forever
of
remained Catholic after her death.
people.
They never went back to Protestantism at all.
Yeah, no. Not at all. Oh, and next up, number 28 is the person that kind of sounded Harther Canute. He he was the brother of Harold Harefoot. He was supposed to take the throne. The throne was stolen from him. He ends up taking the throne. Pretty much rules the same as his brother.
And then after he died, his brother took over.
Yeah, he's the half brother of Edward the Confessor.
Yep, half brother of Harold on his dad's side, half brother of Edward on his mom's side.
Yeah, and he. No, you weren't way off. It's pretty similar sounds in British English. All right, that's how they say the th. They say it like
Besides, this is Old English or Middle English. Is this Middle or Old English?
Have the number. That's not their last name. That's their regnal name. Mary's last name was Tudor. It wasn't the first. It's like how the new king is Charles III.
He's a Windsor.
Yeah, but he's a Windsor.
Or a Montalban Windsor, if we want to get technical about it.
Or a Mountbatten von Saxe Coburg und Gotha.
True, because
but they changed their name.
That's a British story, not an English story.
Yeah, Harther Canute doesn't really do much as king. Yeah, but he lets his brother back. That's important.
Yeah, except be a descendant of the Normans, which might be important.
Yeah. So the next guy's a real famous dude. You guys probably know who he is. Richard the Lionheart. Now, he's this low down the list because he honestly should have just been a general, not a king. He liked fighting. He didn't like being
he was barely. I think he was barely in England most of the time.
He only spent 6 months in England. And then he went off to fight in the Holy Land. And then on his way home, he got captured by the Holy Roman Emperor.
Crusade, right?
Who he pissed off.
The Third Crusade, right?
Yeah, he pissed off the Holy Roman Emperor, and while he's trying to get back home, guess where he has to go through? The Holy Roman Empire. So then he gets captured, put in prison. Essentially, the kingdom has to shell out a bunch of money for him, and when he gets back, he just wants to go to France to campaign and do more battles.
And this is the time, at least the myth of the time of Robin Hood.
Yeah. And his greatest sin is that he left the kingdom to his brother. He didn't fuck his wife well enough to have a kid. His brother's awful, by the way.
But apparently he's higher on the list than this guy is.
Yeah, because he wouldn't be there without Richard. Also, when you only spend 6 months in your kingdom, this is where you're going to be. Okay? I'm sorry about that. We talked about this other guy who's number 26, Edward IV. He's the brother of Richard III. He takes the throne from Henry VI.
The daddy of Henry V, the brother of Richard III, and the father-in-law of Henry VII.
What about the Crusade shipfish? While I'm waiting for why they are asking that, Edward IV,
the son of Richard, Duke of York.
Yeah, his father was the guy who essentially started the rebellion against Henry VI, but he dies.
But at first, he was like, "I just want to be your advisor. You know, I don't want to be king. I want to be your advisor."
Yeah. But Edward IV, yes, he's called Lionhearted. I actually don't. Possibly. I mean, he was a really good. He never feared about a battle, so it could have been from any battle. He did. He did. He was like, "Oh, come on, fight with me, mer."
And
That's the whole thing.
and going back to Richard the first second, he fought against the Saladin guy, right?
Yeah, Saladin, who is one of the greatest rulers in Egyptian history. But Edward the Fourth, he takes over the Yorkist cause, and he eventually takes the throne. He would so the Earl of Warwick, who is known as the Kingmaker, essentially, was his biggest backer and tries to set up.
For a bit, so he changes sides again.
Yeah. Well, it happens because he sets up this marriage for Edward the Fourth, but then Edward the Fourth is like, "Nah, I don't want her. I've met this really, really pretty girl named Eliz something Woodenville. I can't
Yeah, I think it was
remember."
I think it was Elizabeth Woodville.
Yeah. So, yeah, he goes off and marries her in secret.
Marrying for love instead of alliances.
It wasn't for love. It was
Oh.
not for love. It was because she was hot and he was down bad. That's why.
But still, you know.
Yeah. And ultimately, this decision is why his son is made illegitimate by his brother. But his daughter of that marriage eventually marries Henry VII, and you know that comes later. But you know she
Yeah,
marries him.
yeah. Oh yeah, you're legitimate again.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, yes, I am saying it how it is. He was down bad, and he ended up marrying her. Warwick, of course, feels slighted by this and goes off to uh, Henry VI and is like, "Yo, want to
It'd be
become
like,
king again?"
hey, I'll make you king, and I'll let your son marry my daughter.
Meanwhile, Henry VI is catatonic, not responding, and it's his wife going, "Yes,
Yes, my son can marry your daughter.
yes, we want to become king." um, uh, so that happens. He was known as a glutton, so there's that. There's not really much he does under his reign, really. That's more important than
Then marrying that lady.
marrying that lady.
Yeah, the first of the Yorkist kings.
Yeah. And here comes the guy who had a lot worse done to his body. This is Edward II, and I'm really sorry for it being two of the same named people right next to each other again. I didn't realize that was going to happen. Edward.
Well, technically, they weren't even near each other. Edward II was like the great grandfather of Edward the
Yeah.
Third, fourth. I mean,
Edward II is one of those kings that follows a great king and is just sucky, you know?
like in between. His dad was great. His son was great, but not
But
him.
he was sucky. He married the princess, one of the princesses of France. Yeah. Edward II, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah.
Yeah, Isabella. I think this the daughter of Charles the Fourth, maybe no, or
Well, it's
that later.
important because when the main line of the Capetians dies in France, uh, his son will say, "Oh, that means I get to become king of France," and the Hundred Years' War happens. Woohoo! Edward II was probably at least a little bit homosexual. Uh, his favorite guy was Pierre Gaveston, and they were probably lovers, but the nobility hated him. So they ended up killing him. His wife ends up falling in love with another guy. And then they decide that they're going to put her son on the throne.
Not getting any power.
But
Like
yeah.
you're king, like you're king, little guy, but we'll be in touch for a bit.
And so, they put him in the Tower of London, and then they do bad things to him. Look it up on yourself. I'm not saying it on this channel because I feel like it might get banned.
Yeah, but they're thinking Edwards and Towers aren't a good combination.
No.
Edward the Second, and Edward the Fifth and Towers didn't go very well.
No. So the next guy, he's mostly up here for his legacy, not because he was a good king, because he sucked. King John.
Only because it's his descendants. His descendants are currently in charge.
Also, he signs Magna Carta, so there's that. That's important.
Oh yeah, the barons are like, we need more power. He's like, nope, too bad. We need more power.
Yeah. So John was never supposed to become king. He was never supposed to get land.
He was the youngest of all the kids at the time.
Yeah, in
the youngest son
fact,
of all the kids.
his nickname was John Lackland because he had no land. But he becomes king.
But being the last survivor, kind of helps a bit.
He's known for excessively taxing the nobles in order, essentially, during his reign, the entire Angevin Empire collapses. All of the English control over France gone.
Yeah, all the land that his father married into and stuff, and his mother had, and his grandmother married into.
Yeah, it's all gone. He loses all of it. So
I guess that name was appropriate, but later on in life.
Yeah. Essentially, he excessively taxes the nobles in order to get his land back, allies with the Holy Roman Emperor to fight France. They lose. So there's all that money out the door, and the barons are like, what the hell? We were supposed to get stuff out of this. And then they rise up in rebellion, and you get the Magna Carta. Woohoo! John dies in a marsh and loses the crown jewels there. Woohoo!
So, was the Magna Carta the beginning of the Parliament?
It's seen as the beginning of the special rights that English people have over the monarch.
But of course, this would be the House of Lords, not the House of Commons.
But Parliament isn't even a thing until his son. Let's just say that.
I know, but I'm just saying, probably the roots of it. Maybe
it's the beginning of this idea that you have to ask the nobles for things if you're going to do stuff. They don't like being overly taxed for nothing. So now you have to ask them if you can be taxed. Kind of thing.
And also, I think temporarily he would. I remember reading this in the book. I might be wrong, but temporarily he was, quote, what's the word when the Pope says you're no longer?
Oh yeah, he was temporarily excommunicated.
Yeah, but then later on, when he needed. Later on, after this Magna Carta, he's like, "Hey Pope, I need help." He's like, "Okay."
Yeah, part of him raising money for that campaign in France was taking a lot of money from the church, and the Pope wasn't happy about it. So the next guy, Charles II. He was the son of Charles I.
Who came back after like we know, like, hey, we know we killed your daddy, but you want to come back for us?
Yeah. So Charles is a very interesting fellow. He like his father clashed a lot with Parliament and would end up actually dismissing them for a while. Just like his father, but it never really ends in a civil war like last time.
And he had lots of kids. Too bad none of them were legitimate.
Yeah, he had lots of kids that were not legitimate. One of his descendants is Princess Diana, so there's that. He also, his parliament really didn't like France, but he really liked France. And there's a possibility that he signed an alliance with France, promising that he would convert to Catholicism, and it's quite possible that he did convert to Catholicism on his deathbed.
Yeah. Well, I think his mother was French.
Yes. Yeah, he marries a Braganza, a princess of Portugal. His mother was a French lady.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll talk about that later when we get to his grandfather.
maybe, I don't know.
So,
Well, because that wasn't because his father was originally supposed to marry one of the Spanish princesses, but Charles I saw Charles I, very similar to Edward IV, got down bad for a woman and decided to go against what his father wanted and marry the
okay.
French lady.
Well, I'll talk about that later. What I read about that stuff.
All right. So number 22, the second Norman king of England, William II. So when William the Conqueror dies, William II, who is known as William Rufus, so I'll just call him Rufus from now on, Rufus took the English throne while his older brother took the Duchy of Normandy. And his other little brother didn't really get much, but
just like the youngest John.
Yeah.
Again, the youngest was left out completely.
Yeah. So William II actually he campaigns a lot in France because he's trying to gain the Duchy of Normandy from his brother. His brother's trying to get it from him. His brother decides that he wants to go on a crusade, but William II technically does not become Duke of Normandy. He pays a bunch of money in order to become the regent of the Duke of Normandy. His successor is the one that has to eventually take the Duchy of Normandy away. But yeah, this is a depiction of his ride in the New Forest hunting, and he is either killed by accident or murdered.
So what's the Rufus name from?
He probably had red hair as a kid.
Okay.
That's it. Because Rufus means the red. I'm about to make a lot of people cope and seethe with this next one.
Yeah. He died in a hunting accident.
Yeah. Next day.
21.
I am about to make a lot of people cope and seethe about this. He's only number 21. What are you talking about? He's got a play named after him. Yeah.
He almost won he at least almost won the 100-Year War.
Yeah. And then he died, and his son was insane. So there's that.
Yeah. It's said, I might be wrong, but it says if he lived a little bit longer, his son grew up to be older than 6 months old, I think that'd be different.
I don't know, because the first time something stressful happens, his son literally just decides, you know what? I'm gonna become catatonic.
But no, but he might have had more kids with.
That's true. However,
with Catherine of Valois.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, I guess later on she remarried to some guy named Tudor, you know.
Yeah. But Henry V essentially, he takes the throne from his father who had usurped the throne. He decides, you know what, I'm going to end this 100 Years War thing with one campaign. The campaign goes horribly. Oh my God, everybody's got dysentery. Oh no. And now the whole French army, they're coming for us. No, they've got so many knights. Oh no. He whoops their butt at the Battle of Agincourt. He literally kills nearly a whole generation worth of French nobility because of some mud and arrows. Insane. So after that, essentially, the French don't got nothing. He essentially takes Paris, signs a peace treaty in which he marries the daughter of the king, and says that the child of this union becomes King of France and King of England. But that never really happens because he
And that,
dies really early.
yeah, and they never, France and England never warred again.
Nope, nope. The war's over now, eh? You know. Oh. So, you've probably heard of this next guy of Bible fame, James the First.
At least in
Probably,
England.
yeah. Probably the better of the male Stuart monarchs, and that's not saying much. Let's just say a lot of the English kings are bad, so that's kind of inflating his numbers.
Yeah.
um,
After became king of England once his cousin Elizabeth died, and like, oh, the Tudors have no descendants anymore. Hey, our cousin is next in line, I guess.
yeah. Essentially, Elizabeth the First has no heirs. Because of that, she murders James's mother. Um, but James is originally James the Sixth of Scotland. He stays James the Sixth of Scotland when he takes the English throne as well. He's real. Shakespeare's really doing his thing during his reign, kind of thing, more than under Elizabeth. He tries. He nearly gets blown up by a
Oh,
bunch of Catholics.
the Guy Fawkes thing.
Yeah, Guy Fawkes. Um, he tries to get his son married to a Spanish princess, but then his son decides, I really like the way that lady looks over there, but she's French.
Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. I was reading a book about I read, not reading. I was listening to an Audible. I think it was an Audible book about the Tudors and the Stuarts, their history and stuff of England, and at least according to this research that you were talking about, James here wanted to cover all his bases. So the plan was going to marry his son to a Catholic and marry his daughter to a Protestant. So he has friends on both sides of the religious wars.
That is quite possible.
So his son was going to marry to a Catholic Spanish, later got married to a Catholic French, and his daughter obviously was married to the Palestine people. Palestine.
Yeah, the Palatinate. Yeah, because he marries his daughter to one of the most powerful nobles in the Holy Roman Empire, who eventually tries to become king of Bohemia, and it doesn't really work out for them.
But I guess later on, her grandson was somebody important.
Yeah, eventually they went out, but yeah, James is the first. Also bisexual. Nice, that's cool. Um, yeah. Uh, he wanted to become king of Great Britain, not just Scotland and Ireland, but neither of the parliaments wanted to unite. So he just called himself the King of Great Britain.
Which is why he was the sixth and the first.
Yep. So there's that. Also, he backstabbed the Dutch. The bastard. They're fighting their war of independence. The English were giving them aid, but he's sitting there. Yes, we do love a by king. Yes. So
this is kind of ironic since later on his grandson, her granddaughter, marries a Dutch king.
yeah. This whole time he's supposed to be giving the Dutch like military aid, and but behind their backs he's like, "Yo, Spain, you want to become like allies or something? I want to marry my son to your daughter. Don't tell the Dutch about it though."
Like that, Charles. No, you're marrying the wrong you're marrying the wrong person. Alliance here.
Yeah, I mean, and France at the time was also allies with the Dutch, so there's that. But that there was a nice. I forgot the name of the channel, but they did great videos on the 80 Years War, which was the Dutch war, the quote unquote Dutch War of Independence from Spain. Alright, number 19. Is Edmund the First. He's the king that finally takes over Northumbria. There's a couple of kings that took over Northumbria, then lost Northumbria, then their successor would take back Northumbria and then lose. He loses Northumbria at first, but then he takes it back. So he unites the kingdom of England, and his son is really important, King Edgar, who was cool. I really like King Edgar, but yeah. He's writing a lot of legacy score here.
Legacy score?
Yeah, like because his son was such a good king, he gets inflated for it.
Who is his father?
Oh shit. Edmund the First. His father was Edward the Elder.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of,
his daddy's next.
Yeah. Oh, his daddy is not next. It's Eadred. My bad. Eadred. All of these. This is where I get a little bit because all of these kings.
Well, this is your time. I thought you this is on your era. I thought you'd be better prepared for this era.
Yeah. So, Eadred was king right before the last guy. No.
So his father or cousin or brother?
I think he's brothers. He's the brother of our last guy, Edmund the First. I don't quite know. Oh, wait. I think this guy's the guy. You know what? They all got similar names. I don't like it. He's the one that eventually takes Northumbria. That's why he's higher. The other guy lost it. He's one of those that takes Northumbria, loses it again. He's the one that eventually takes it.
And so he's the guy that formerly unites England into one country instead of just the 7 kingdoms it was before?
Yes. That's the end. Next.
So that's all he did, really? Conquered.
Yeah. That's all he did. Did some stuff with the Benedictine reforms, but that's mostly Edgar. Edward the Elder. He's the successor of Alfred the Great, and he really solidifies the kingdom after Alfred the Great. Him and his sister, who was Lady of Mercia, essentially conquer everything south of the Humber together. He fights one of his cousins, Athelwold. That doesn't really go anywhere, but he ensures that Alfred the Great's legacy keeps going.
So this guy is the true Edward the First.
Yes. He is. But no, he's Edward the Elder. All righty.
So Edward the Elder. What's the elder for?
Because he's the elder.
The eldest Edward?
Yeah, it's probably because he's older than the other Edwards that become king, like Edward the Confessor. It's probably a later name given to him.
So he's the son of Alfred the Great, and his it's his line that rules, like his descendants rule.
Yes. He is the son of Alfred the Great. Yep.
But number 16.
Henry the Fourth. He's the one who takes over the throne from Richard II. He sort of stabilizes a kingdom that was in decline under Richard II, and he sets up what will later be done by his son. And the Lancastrians could have been great. He built a great legacy for them, and then they squandered it by becoming insane.
Yeah, I think at first he's like, I just want my dukedom back from my dad. He's like, now that I'm here, might as well take the whole country.
Yeah, he gets exiled to Ireland, raises an army, and then comes back and is like, "What's up? Give me the throne, bro." So there's that.
And then later on, because he was the son of this third or fourth guy, the other guy is like, hey, you know what? We're like we're the kids of the elder kids, so shouldn't we be in charge? Like, no.
Yeah, I also really like what he's wearing. He's got the drip. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Looks like a French zouave. And I've done it again. Oh no! Don't go to the next one. Oh no! Okay, go to the next one. I'm really sorry for this one. I'm sorry, Shitfish and Eddie. It's Henry III. Oh no! Oh no! Henry III was
the son of John and the father of Edward the First.
Yes. He also is one of those guys writing the legacy score because he is the one who regularly brings parliaments in. He's the first king to oversee a parliament as well. He does end up not doing so well. There's a civil war under his reign in which his son absolutely like Henry III. How dare? But yeah, Henry III. This guy named Simon Montfort was one of his favorites, and everybody else hated Simon Montfort. So there was a civil war. His son crushes it for him, but also his son's Edward the First. Son's Edward the First. He solidifies. Huh?
So we'll get to him in a bit.
Yeah, he solidifies Magna Carta, and he calls the first parliaments. The next lady is very, very well known. Elizabeth the First,
the Virgin Queen.
Yeah. She most likely was not a virgin, and she really liked messing with dudes, like, come on. She was known for politically favoring her lovers as well, which,
and had a state named after her.
Yes, Virginia. So Lizzie the First was never supposed to become queen. Her father married her mother second from Catherine of Aragon. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, who eventually got her head chopped off for infidelity.
Yeah, at least Mary's mother had a little bit better. She was just divorced.
Yeah. Anne Boleyn gets her head chopped off. So Elizabeth, as well as her younger brother Edward the Sixth, really solidify Protestantism within England. Elizabeth has a lot of problems with Scotland and Spain. Essentially, Mary the First of Scots, who is the mother of James the First,
and also the descendant of Henry VII.
yeah, she has a claim on the throne, and she's a Catholic, and a lot of people were conspiring to put her on the throne. Um, she eventually she eventually marries an English nobleman who apparently was a dick and died. Who was the father of James the First, who died in an accident.
And also Mary's like second cousin too.
That is also true. He was a steward. That's gross.
Yeah, he was also like he was also a descendant. Yeah, both James's mother and James's father were both descendants of of was it Margaret or Mary, the daughter of Henry VII.
Yes, it was an accident, Shipfish. An accident. She totally did not have him murdered at all.
It's funny though. Elizabeth murders Mary, and later on, like, you know what? I married your, I killed your mom and all, but you're my heir now.
Yeah, but that's because James the First was a Protestant.
And the only one left, I think, the only one left of the Tudor, probably only one left of the Tudors too.
Yeah, Elizabeth was highly paranoid about a Catholic coming to take her throne. So eventually, Mary, Queen of Scots, is captured and gets beheaded.
Oh, and also I think the Armada happened during her reign too.
Yes, Elizabeth pledges to support the young Dutch Republic in its fight against Spain. And Spain's King Philip, who was her sister's husband for a little bit, is like, how dare you? I am going to make a giant fleet and I'm going to come and attack you. And they get destroyed.
Even before they even faced the English, the weather, it's like, nope.
Yeah, but and then
Which I guess if you believe stuff, be like, oh my god, an act of God. We're on the right side.
yeah, but Philip, the King of Spain, was like, what? But I'm trying to bring a kingdom back to your true faith, God. Why did you do this to me? Kind of thing. Maybe it's because God isn't real.
Yeah, the other side's like, oh my god, we were right. We're the right faith after all.
Yeah,
because we won. Religious wars.
yeah.
Especially among its own, especially among the same denomination, kind of quote quote.
Yeah, Elizabeth ends up never having any kids because she was apparently a virgin. Put all those quotes around that. She was a virgin. The Elizabethan era is named after her. That's cool. She does the plantations in Ireland as well, though James the First does a lot more of them. Essentially, Northern Ireland was really anti-English and anti-Protestant, so she decides to confiscate land from local Irish people and give it to Protestant English people and Protestant Scottish people that want to live there. But that's mostly that's mostly her successor. And there's also been a theory that this original plantation system was a precursor to American colonialism. So there's that. Edward III.
Lucky number 13.
Edward III was put on the throne by his mother and her lover after his father was killed. But when he came of age, he said, "Screw you, Mom. I don't like you anymore." And he ends up taking the reins of power. He's brought down a lot because before him, there were no dukes with it that were subservient to the King of England. Now, there was the Duchy of Normandy and the Duchy of Aquitaine and the Duchy of Gascony, but he's the Duke of those things. He creates the first duchies in English history, the Duchy of Lancaster, the Duchy of York, and gives them to some of his sons. And this ends up becoming a bad thing because it leads to the Wars of the Roses and it leads to his descendants losing out on the throne.
He had a lot of kids, and that was the problem.
Yeah.
But if you want to know more about him, here's the link to the we did a whole video about him, and here's the link to it.
Yeah. So Edward III starts the 100 Years' War because he thinks that because he's the descendant of one of the kings of France, he gets to become king. The French are like, no, you don't.
The French are like, no, we don't go through women at all. We go through directly male layers. So
no, how dare you try to take my throne? We do not trust you, English dog, English pig dog. No.
It's like women blood can't rule. It's only male blood.
But Edward III actually kicks France's ass a lot, but doesn't really go anywhere. His son dies. Stuff like that.
The Black Prince.
Yeah.
It's funny though. You would even though I may be wrong though, even though the Black Plague happened during this time. He didn't die of the Black Plague, I don't think, or did he?
He might have. I don't know.
I forget why he was called the Black Prince.
Because he donned black armor.
Okay, but it's still funny. Like, for the longest time, I thought it was because he died of the Black Plague, but
yeah, the Black Death comes to England under Edward III. So there's that. The next guy was another guy we talked about a lot. Kenneth the Great had no real claim to the throne of England, but he said, "You know what? I got the men."
Except technically his father was king for a little bit. So
yeah, but his father didn't have any claim to the throne of England either, and he was just like, "You know what? I got the men. I'm here. Let's do it." People don't like Athelred the Unready. Let's do it. Essentially, the same thing happens with Kenneth the Great. Oh, I've got the men. The people don't like Athelred the Unready. Let's take it over. He rules over what's called the North Sea Empire. Under him, a new aristocracy begins to form because he essentially kills off the last aristocracy. And we get people like Leofric of Mercia and Godwin of Wessex. I don't really have much to say about him. Most of his stuff happens in Scandinavia.
All right. But yeah, I guess the most important, besides conquering the empire, the most important thing he did would be marry Ethelred's wife.
Yeah, Emma of Normandy, which is weird because he originally married this lady named Alvivu of Northampton in order to gain the support of people mad at Athelred the Unready. But
it's also funny about that too. I looked at the family tree. Even though they're probably different, even though they were probably different women, both his first wife and Alfred's first wife, the mother of Edmund Ironside, had the same name too. Well, I don't think they're the same person.
Alfyivu is a very popular name in Anglo-Saxon England. Let's just say that. And it means the gift of elves. Back then, gift was said with a yes sound. I know, weird. Thank the Vikings for it being gift now and not yift.
Yeah.
So number 11 is Henry VIII. Oh yeah. This guy decides to have 6 wives in order to get a son, and then his son dies on him. Oh man.
See, the poem goes, divorce, beheaded, died, divorce, beheaded, survived.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was his third wife. His third wife, he actually really loved her, and yeah.
Well, obviously he loved her. She gave him a son that lived for a little bit.
Yeah, so when she died, that actually did a lot to him. He's known for being a quite attractive man in his youth and quite virile in his youth, and then he has a jousting accident and he can't exercise anymore, but he still eats like he was exercising, and he balloons, man. He balloons. He gets fat. He becomes a big chungus.
And at first he's like, I'm a defender of the Pope, and screw that Martin Luther guy.
Yeah, it's quite clear that when you learn about Henry VIII, he was a quite devoted Catholic, and that even after he shunned the Catholic Church, he wished to stay a Catholic, but because of politics,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
had to shun
He's
it.
like, I'm still, yeah. Like technically, he's like, I'm still a Catholic, but the Pope's not in charge anymore. I'm in charge.
Yeah, so he founds the Church of England, but at first the Church of England is just Catholic light, and he does it because he wants to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. The Pope would not let him annul the marriage. So
Because I think partly was because his nephew, the Holy Roman Empire, was kind of holding the Pope hostage, maybe hey Pope, this is my land, you do what I say. Like he's like, okay, you can't be divorced.
yeah, the Holy Roman Empire was at its most powerful at the time. So when you've got like the relative of the Holy Roman Emperor and Henry's trying to shun her, maybe no, you're not allowed to.
like 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 hey, don't diss my aunt.
Yeah. Henry VIII also wanted to be seen as a great conqueror. He tried many times to do campaigns in France, but they all ended in failure. So, poor guy. He also, one of his wives, I think it was Anne of Cleves. The match was made between a guy named Thomas, his essentially prime minister. Thomas Cromwell was like, "You'll like this lady. You'll like this lady." The minute he saw her, he was like, "I do not like her."
But she was only divorced, so she got off lucky.
Thomas,
No,
you know what? No, yeah, but he says, "Thomas, you know what happened to my second wife? That's happening to you now because she was that ugly. I did not like her."
but he got off. He like I said, he didn't like, but his wife got off lucky. I'm just divorcing you. Bye bye.
Yeah, his wife got off lucky, but Thomas Cromwell got his head chopped off.
I don't know if I don't know if they're related or not. It could be a similar name, but Cromwell. I think that name came up later on in English history.
Yeah, Oliver Cromwell. I have no idea. Thomas Cromwell. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if they came up later. I don't. I don't know if they're related or not, but still, that's like a little bit.
Maybe.
Hey, you remember when you're like, that'd be funny if it was. Hey, remember when you're when you're not, they were ancestors, but remember when the former king chopped off my ancestor's head? Well, I'm doing it to you now.
Yeah.
Payback.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that more, but They're probably from the same family, you know. Yeah. So next,
But yeah. See, anything else about Henry? Yeah, they had kids. No, one divorced, and 6 wives, pretty much.
I'm
But
about
now
I'm about to
we
do the bad
we are.
thing again.
But first, we are now in the top 10.
Yes. But I
Number
did the bad
10.
thing again. I'm sorry. It's Henry the First. So Henry the First was the guy we talked about earlier with William the Second and Robert Curtis. He's a son of William the Conqueror.
Like the youngest, I think one of the youngest kids.
Yeah, he's the youngest kid. And he was honestly the best of the kids. He rules over England quite well. He ends up winning a battle against his other brother Robert and becoming Duke of Normandy. The biggest drawback for this guy is that his son dies in an accident. An actual accident this time.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if it was on purpose I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but he decided to marry the last descendant of the Anglo-Saxons.
Yes, it was on purpose. All of his advisors were like, but she has an English name, so they changed her name to Matilda.
But I guess that he did that to legitimize, like, hey, we conquered all, but now our kids are blood relatives of Alfred the Great.
Yeah. The end of his reign is essentially him trying to ensure that his daughter will succeed him. That doesn't work because, yeah, the throne's taken from her.
Yes. Oh yeah. So yeah, but then he married before he dies or after he dies, marries his daughter off to first to the Holy Roman Empire, which they didn't have the kids, but then later on to this little county of Anjou, the
Plantagenets, yeah.
that word.
Number 9.
Actually, I don't know if it's true or not, but the thing I heard that one of the reasons that the people supported Stephen for king too is because Normandy and the Anjou were like rivals or something. And they didn't want the Geoffrey of Anjou to become king via marriage.
Yeah. Number 9. Mary the Second and William the Third.
I think the first and only time England had dual monarchy.
Yeah. Mary the Second was the daughter of James the Second. She married the Protestant William of Orange. Orange, by the way, if you're going to ask, was a principality in France. That's where they get their name from. They eventually become stadtholder of the Netherlands, which essentially is just like the leader of the Netherlands at the time.
And also, William III was also a grandson or great grandson of Charles I.
Yeah, these guys were first cousins, so I'm glad they never procreated.
Yes.
That's nasty.
Yeah. Charles I's daughter married William the first or second or first of Orange.
There are a million Williams of Orange.
And then
just say William of Orange.
Then his son, was James, and they had kids and married each other. Not as bad as the Habsburgs, but pretty close.
Yeah, Mary was a Protestant, of course. Her father was a Catholic. They're invited over. They signed the Bill of Rights, not the American one, but the English one, essentially becoming more of what we now see the modern monarchs of the United Kingdom as.
And I think it was under him. I think it was under this guy who said, "Hey, after after Mary's sister Anne, and it comes after her, that we're going to go over to the Hanovers.
Maybe, I don't know. William III actually led troops in Ireland against James II during one of the attempts of the Jacobites to take over Rome. William III, of course, being also the stadtholder of the Netherlands, favored a foreign policy that mostly centered around the Netherlands, and that caused a lot of resentment with the English. But that mostly happens after Mary II dies. Before he dies, he was actually devastated by her death, so that's sad. But yeah,
Yeah, never
Num-
again. Yeah, never again would there be a dual king and queen of England. At least that's at least for now.
yeah, very interesting thing.
Both, like I said, both descendants of Charles the First.
Yeah, gross. Number 8. Athelstan.
Back to the Anglo-Saxons.
Athelstan wins the Battle of Brunanburh, essentially breaking up this. Essentially, without him, Northumbria never would have been conquered. He's the first guy to take control of Northumbria. However, upon his death, it is lost. But without the Battle of Brunanburh, there would the North probably would have never come under English control. So that's why he's up here.
And how you pronounce his name?
Athelstan. Number 7. Edgar is. He essentially creates the Kingdom of England. Yes, it had existed for a little bit, but he creates the systems by which English monarchs will eventually use to rule over the kingdom.
Yeah,
Until
I know it's your list now, but me a chance to make a good pun here.
What?
Henry the Seventh.
Yeah, but he's too good. I have him way higher. I'm sorry. Edgar also uses the power of the church to essentially become one of the most powerful kings England has ever seen. Some people say that it was so powerful that England might have been a nation state, a proto-nation state at this time. And it all goes to shit from here for at least the centralization of the kingdom.
Oh,
Because
yeah. So it's like nation state, like you're like. Was that like talking about your like Scythian bead name thing?
yeah, essentially modern countries are nation states. So
Well, it
not
happened.
all modern countries are nation states, but most are.
He did it before it was. He did it before it was cool.
Yes, it has been argued that.
I was before it was cool. Like I was first.
Yes. Number 6. Henry II.
Ah.
The progenitor of the Plantagenets that ruled all the way until Henry VII takes the throne. He succeeds Stephen of Blois because of the treaty and everything. He's the grandson of Henry I, the son of Empress Matilda, who was supposed to be queen but had it stolen from her.
Yes. See, through his right through his mom, he inherited Normandy in England. Through his dad, he inherited Anjou, and through his wife, he got whatever her area was.
Yeah, he essentially creates what's called the Angevin Empire. So they control. He controlled more of France than the King of France, and that was all the King of France's fault, by the way. he decided that he didn't really like his wife, kind of for similar reasons to Henry VIII, actually. No sons, kind of thing.
He had two
Plus,
daughters. Like like you never gonna have any sons, so I'm gonna divorce you. She
plus they
marries
didn't. I mean, they didn't get along either,
yeah,
but
but still, then she marries Henry, and she has like at least three sons.
yeah. She marries Henry, and then Henry becomes the most powerful noble in France.
That's really funny. It's like, hey, I think it was Louis, one of the Louis. It was like, he's like, hey, why do you start having sons now?
Yeah.
After you divorce?
Uh, Henry was actually the first. This was the first time that there was a dual monarchy over England, but there was a senior and a junior partner. He put his first son, Henry the Young King, on the throne. However, during his sons like to rebel against him,
Yeah,
mostly because of the influence of their mother. So
yeah.
in the end, Eleanor of Aquitaine and Henry II didn't get along either. But
But and then the little disagreement with the Archduke of the Canterbury guy. A little
yeah,
disagreement there.
his childhood friend Thomas Becket became Archbishop of Canterbury. He thought that because they were friends, they'd get along. But the Archbishop of Canterbury sided with the Pope all the
Like
time.
yeah, I never mentioned all, but religious royalty first, friend
Yeah,
second.
and then he was like, "Will someone not rid me of this damn bishop?" And then
Someone
some of
did,
his knights go kill him.
and he's
He
like,
has
I
to.
didn't. He's like, I didn't actually mean that.
I didn't
like
mean for you to kill him.
like
God
like
damn it!
like hey God, I didn't do this on purpose. Please don't strike me down.
It was a misunderstanding. Uh, but yeah, he first Plantagenet, Angevin Empire, very nice.
Yep,
Uh, he ends up dying. His favorite son was actually John. Uh,
got everything in the end.
yeah. And when he during the last rebellion of his sons, when John joined the rebellion, it is said that he was so heartbroken by that it killed him. So that's sad. Number 5, Queen Anne.
And the last of the true English people, and the first of the Brit, last of the English, the first of the true British monarchs.
Yes, she sees over the unification of Scotland and Ireland into one kingdom, the Kingdom of Great Britain. She is the second daughter of James II. She was married to either the King of Denmark or a Prince of Denmark named George. Um,
They
she
had
knew
kids, but none of them survived.
she was actually really good at politicking with Parliament in order to keep the country together and stuff like that. During her reign, the Duke of Marlborough goes and whoops the ass of France, ensuring that Spain and France don't unite. So there's that. Um, she's also the last monarch in English history and Scottish history, because of course now that's intertwined, to veto a bill. No one else has done it.
Yeah, I forget what it was called. I forget which war it was, but but in America it was called Queen Anne's War, but in Europe it was called something else.
Yeah, the War of Spanish Succession.
Yeah, I don't know why we no we're gonna call it Queen Anne. We're calling it Queen Anne's War instead of
Uh,
that war.
yeah, we did that. We did like the 7 Years Wars, the French and Indian War, stuff like that. We did that a lot. But yeah, Anne does a lot for influencing the fact that monarchs now no longer. And she didn't even want to veto the bill. She only did it because she was scared that it would lead to a Jacobite uprising. So she's the reason why monarchs are now more hands off, and it helps that her successor didn't speak English.
The Hanover,
Yeah, the
her cousin.
Hanoverians.
I heard. I know. I heard she almost married her. She almost married George the First.
Quite possible. I have no idea. So number 4.
The last of the Stuarts and the last of England.
Yeah. William the First. He conquers England, but he largely keeps the governmental structures intact. He just takes the English out of it and puts in Norman dudes.
Yeah.
Without him,
And before he was a conqueror, he was a bastard.
that is true. His mom was just a courtier. But yeah, early on in his reign as Duke of Normandy, he had to put down a rebellion, and a lot of those rebellious nobles went and ended up founding the Kingdom of Sicily. So there's that. But yeah, he was known for being ruthless, but it solidified his reign over the Kingdom of England and the Duchy of Normandy, and he's the reason why there's no Anglo-Saxon kings of England no more. Also, he was too fat for his what's it called? Coffin. So while they're trying to shove him in there, they accidentally puncture him, and it stunk the church up. So that was a very quick funeral.
That's weird. Like, should we build a bigger coffin now? Let's give him a regular sized coffin and stuff him in there.
Yeah. Also, he didn't spend a lot of time in England either. But yeah. Oh, the Domesday book. I forgot about that. That's really important for our understanding of England during this time, which is nice.
That was like the thing where they like a more like a was that like the census or something like that? I think it was a census.
Yeah, it was a census. It was essentially that's why you can't escape them making this book unless it's the Doomsday. You can't escape it like it's the Doomsday or something like that. So who do you think is going to be the next guy?
But before we go on that, a little more William the Fast. I might be wrong. I think he also he made everyone from dukes to barons to earls all swear allegiance to him alone instead of going the feudalism route, like dukes and earls and barons, all that. Like, no, you all report to me. I'm in charge.
Yeah, and he broke up a lot of the bigger earldoms from the Anglo-Saxon period and made them smaller and make them look more like the modern shires of England. So
I think he started also the castle building in England.
Yes, he did.
Like go run this way, castle here. Go this way, castle here. Like was it a day journey? Every day journey by horse, you build a castle.
Yeah. Okay, who do you think's next?
Let's see. Is it Henry?
Nope.
So I think okay. Then Edward.
Yep. Edward the First. He saved his father's reign, and then when he comes to power, he's much better with his nobles. He also ensures regular meetings of Parliament.
And he conquered Wales.
He did conquer Wales.
Not so much. A little bit harder time with Scotland, though.
Yeah. He also puts a dude named John Balliol on the Scottish throne. A rebellion happens against him. He has to put it down. Also, by the way, Braveheart, that's actually Edward's nickname, not.
You mean a quote historical movie got history wrong?
He was called Braveheart because he really wanted to go on crusade, but he wasn't able to because of circumstances. So he said, "Take my heart to the Holy Land."
Well, I thought he was. I thought he was on
He
crusade.
did go on crusade earlier in his reign, but he wanted to go back on crusade.
And actually, it's you mentioned that because I think he was on crusade when his dad died. But England, but unlike other times, he needed to rush back. You're like, I'm good. I'm in charge. They waited for him. England waited for him. No one, they like no one else was like, hey, he's not here. We're in charge now. They waited for Edward to get back.
Yep. And number 2.
And and also he like I'm gonna marry my son to the Queen of France, the Princess of France.
Yeah, that too. But number 2, this guy, yeah, everybody wanna be crusading. Henry the Seventh is my favorite English monarch personally.
And again, we talked about him. We did a whole video on him too.
Henry the Seventh is essentially the guy who fixes England after the Wars of the Roses. He sets up a new centralized administration system that was really good at taxing, essentially made it so that the nobles didn't want to rebel against him, stuff like this. Awesome, cool. He was really
the daughter of Edward IV.
Yeah, he brings the kingdom together by marrying. He was the Lancastrian claimant to the throne, so he marries the Yorkist Elizabeth of York.
It's also funny because technically he was supposed to be in a line that wasn't even legitimate of Henry Bold, whatever Henry the
John of Gaunt.
John of Gaunt. One of his wives, but no, he's legitimate now.
Yeah. He's really good at managing money, and he sets up essentially he sets it up for Henry VIII to just squander, but
and then he marries his daughter off to some king of Scotland. Nothing came of that.
Yeah, but Henry VII, really cool guy. I really like him.
Like I said, if you want to know more about that, click the link I just put in chat. We did a whole series about a whole video on him.
And the greatest king of England. He has the name the Great for a reason. I'm sorry. There would be no England without this man. While Athelstan ensured that a united kingdom of England with the North was a thing, there would be no kingdom of England at all without Alfred the Great. He re-encouraged learning within the kingdom. He beat back those dirty Danes. He made the boroughs, and he's just the greatest king in English history. There you go. I'm sorry. There's not much else to say about it.
If you disagree with him, tell me in the comment sections. Bring it on.
Yeah. But yeah, Alfred the Great. My man's named the Great for a reason. The only English monarch to get that name.
Yeah, I think there's only two. Only two greats in England, right? Him and Canute.
Canute, yeah, but yeah, he doesn't count. He's Danish.
And then before that, it was what? Before him, it was Alexander.
Yeah. But yeah, there's my list. If you disagree with me, you're wrong.
So before we get, so you want to rank? So where would you, even though they're not English, what do you think? What do you think of the ones after Anne, the Hanovers and the Windsors?
The Hanoverians don't really do much because they speak German. George II is actually the last British monarch to ever lead troops in battle as a monarch. He leads them in Germany. I forget. There was a million wars over there. I don't remember which war, but he's the last one. That's all I know. George III, of course, he gets a bad rap because of the American Revolution, all that. You know, he had some crazy times.
Plus, I think he was with. I think he also had a mental thing problem too.
Yeah, he had mental health issues. George IV, his son, was a party freak. Okay.
I might be wrong though. I think George III, the thing was also like the third
Oh yeah,
longest
yeah. He
ruling,
reigned for a long time.
only being out by his granddaughter, and then the last one.
Victoria. Yeah. Um, So George IV was a partier. William IV, nobody really remembers anything about him, including me. Uh, poor guy. Because he's right in between a party animal and Victoria, literally one of the most well-known monarchs. Uh, what about the last one? What
We'll get to
of the
eventually.
last one? But yeah, Victoria, first Empress of India, stuff like that. Then her son Edward the Seventh
Seventh. Yes, seventh.
doesn't really do much. Then his son was
George,
George V, who ruled
who
over
decided
England.
who decided to take the name from a German to a house name.
Uh, are you
Like
talking about Lizzie the second?
it's
Chippish?
instead of during World War I, it's like I know name is Saxe Coburg Gotha, but I don't call it us Windsors now.
Yeah, they renamed themselves because they sounded too German. The Mountbattens also changed their name because they were originally von Battenburg, so they changed their name to Mountbatten. Um, they're important for that.
Yeah,
George V is succeeded by Edward VIII, who ends up abdicating because he wants to marry a American divorcee.
not just an American divorcee, a twice divorcee.
Okay. There's some evidence he had some Nazi sympathies, but that's not my period of history. Allegedly. Okay, allegedly. Um, and then there's
His brother got in
his
charge.
brother George VI, who had a stutter, but in order to get through World War II, he worked through his stutter, which is cool. And then Lizzie II, who
Who's
was
now who became now the current longest reigning England.
yeah, and she made everybody think that the royal family was nice. She was probably a racist, but uh, there is this moment where she does denounce Rhodesia for doing the things Rhodesia did, which was the only time in her entire reign in which she went against what the prime minister told her to do, which honestly is based, to be honest with you, because Rhodesia sucked. And now Charles III, I don't know what's going to happen with him.
And there you go, the history of England from Alfred to Charlie.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody any questions in chat? Shipfish, Eddie. Anybody have any questions? Anybody who's not in chat yet? Nobody. All right. Well, we're waiting for a question. Anybody? So, we'll give you a little sneak preview. Next month,
We're
be
doing
here.
it again, but with the
It's gonna
French.
it's gonna go across the English Channel, he's going to give up his English claim and start working on the French.
The French. We're gonna learn about the frogs. I wonder if any of them were gay. I'm sorry, I had to make that joke. All right. So that's it. That's it.
Yep. I just gotta talk about stuff coming up on my channel. I think nothing coming up on your channel. I'm pretty sure.
Nope.
All right. So for those interested, next week we will be talking about the Iron Man trilogy. Robert Downey Jr.'s coming back to fame after his downfall. Then in 2 weeks, but I'll have RJ and Godless Engineer here talk about intelligent design, or as I call it, unintelligent design. About how if we had a designer, I don't think he did a very good job at designing us, because we had a lot of problems. Then we're talking about the U.S. Constitution and what it's all about and why it's lasted for 200 years. And then after that, obviously, Kings of France. And after that, the Captain America. So if you don't think it interests you, come on back every Saturday and help us out by clicking on that like button below and sharing this video with everybody you know, if you want to, that is. Thanks again for watching. You want to say anything before we go?
Bye.
Right. And never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. We'll see you next time.